Oh, crap, I'm live. All right. Well, I want to make a video because I just had this idea, and it's something that I've had for a while. But I was watching this video of Matthias, is it Strong T, and from the Discord community, and he was talking to Sarah from the Netherlands, who was on Paul's channel a while ago, and they were just going through her story a little bit, and they, and it got to the point where Sarah was she was a gamer and she was on a Discord forum, and she met some guy that thought was intelligent and had unique things to say. And at some point, it came out that he was a Christian, and she was like, "Oh, maybe I can help you with this," or like, "Oh, poor guy." And then she kind of just discovered that he was intelligent, and he encouraged her to read the Bible, and then she started, that was part of her process of learning. Oh, there's a lot more to this, and Christianity isn't just full of a bunch of dumb, brainwashed people. So this is a phenomenon, or like this is something that I've seen that's happened multiple times. So, Jem, who is a friend, uh, that is in my Voxer group thing, or our Voxer group that we do, he's also been on Randos United. He's spoken with Cal about his journey of faith. It's an awesome conversation, actually, if you haven't seen theirs. And and his, I don't know what you'd call it, becoming a Christian, and then also being a universalist. Cal likes to interview people who are universalists of how they got to that position. And oh, also, by the way, Hank, this is for you because my hair. What you said, I needed that I look like I have a tonsure, so I just wanted to wear a hat so you don't shame me. Um, um, Sorry. So, Jem, that's something else that he said in his video is that he never really realized that there were intelligent Christians. And then that's part of the whole kind of Jordan Peterson phenomenon, also, of when he was doing his biblical series and going through it. People are just, these thousands and tens of thousands and maybe millions of people are having this realization that, well, Christianity is potentially intelligent and has intelligent things to say, and even science is getting to that point. If you don't take Christianity at kind of like a simple, literal, historical, critical, like, if you don't approach the Bible like it's a science textbook, and if you don't approach it as like a philosophical materialist, um, you you basically start to see, and more and more as we're uncovering ancient ways of understanding the Bible and symbolic readings of the Bible and things like that, people are like, "Wow, this is making a ton of sense," and it's relating to psychology, um, and there's just myriad of ways that it's making sense to people. And so I just want to talk about the pattern, the phenomenon of people who are either post-Christian, um, or even ex-Christian to a degree, discovering that there are intelligent Christians and what that means. So, one of the things that I had in mind is, back in the earlier days, um, of, I don't even know if it was pre-Bridges of Meaning, but one of the early people that was talking, that had a few conversations with Paul. His name's Eric, I believe. He had like the red headphones. Um, who is really what was he really into? Euclid. He's like a math. I think he was getting his PhD in math, which he probably has already. I haven't seen him around in a long time. Interesting guy, smart guy. But he talked once in a conversation with Paul about um, admiration and respect, and this gets into a lot of my thoughts connected with Girard and even mimetic theory, and how everything ultimately is rooted in faith, because I think it's a rationalist delusion that we believe things based on the facts. I mean, you can, like, Chris made a great video about Steven Pinker recently in his podcast with Joe Rogan, and Steven Pinker is like a hard enlightenment rationalist that just, I said a long time ago on Twitter, you can't reason with a rationalist that rationalism is irrational. You just can't. Or Krishna Das said, one of my favorite quotes too is, you can't think yourself out of a prison made of thought. Um, And Steven Pinker is definitely in that box. He's just like, why can't people be rational? I'm rational. As Paul says, I have the monarchical vision. I just see everything clearly and objectively. Okay, fine. Or listen to John Vervaeke and salience and relevance realization, or I don't know. People that are that much of a rationalist don't understand the one of my other favorite quotes. What you see and hear depends a lot upon where you're standing and also the kind of person that you are. Out of the infinite amount of facts and information, and even something as simple as sight, when Jordan Peterson talks about robotic sight, why do you see the things that you see, and why do you focus on the things that you focus? Oh, it's just pure rationality. Okay, the only way you could be purely rational is if you are omniscient. So are you claiming omniscience? Okay, no, then what you're saying is dumb. I call it like smart dumb people. So all that sorry, I'm all over the place. Back to Girard and Mimesis and admiration and respect. I would say at the end of the day, people believe things based in what they love. And there's a great Viktor Frankl quote from this that I always have Michael Lady share with me because I never remember it. But essentially, you believe what you love, and you respect and admire and believe and follow the people that you admire and respect. And the reason that this is important is because it's not rooted in rationality, it's rooted in love. And it's rooted in something that is ultimately beyond even the power of your will, because you don't choose who you love. You don't choose what you love. It's it's somewhat involuntary. Which doesn't mean that you don't make choices that can affect that, especially as you proceed into the future and you're forming habits and stuff. I mean, this goes back to my last conversation and stuff, or my last monologue, where I was talking about stuff with Michael Polanyi and habits and how habits form us and how your thinking and your mind is future oriented. But so all of this circling back, so we emulate and we mimetically take on the thinking and the propositions of people that we love. I think that's how it works. And so when people discover that they're actually intelligent Christians, number one, why are they surprised by this? Why are people surprised? I would really love, if anybody watches this and has thoughts, I would love their thoughts on why they or other people could be surprised that they're intelligent Christians. I think you could have a really long conversation about that. Part of it, I think, is because people who grew up potentially within certain Christian cultures and households grew up in kind of a very insular, isolated, fundamentalist Christianity that um, that was just like rooted in fear and ideology, really ideological tribalism. Had a prescribed list of like, these are good people to read, these are bad people to read. If you read the bad people, then you're out. It's very Jonathan Haidt, conservative disgust factor. Like, those people are unclean, those are dirty, those are other, those are bad, those are scary, those are like, I might not be a Christian if I believe those things, or if I'm even open to those things. If I think certain thoughts, I might not be a Christian, which has all of that has very um, interesting rabbit trails that you could go down to think about. Um, I think that's a huge factor in it. Why people think there are intelligent Christians, because they've never actually seen them. They've never actually been around intelligent Christians, and that's fascinating to me. I think that's rooted in what I would call confessionalism, which is modernist Christianity and their attempt to use propositions and confessions as a way of controlling and policing boundaries and telling people what to think, which is something you can't do. Uh, people have, people have no control over what they believe. Again, so like, why are you trying to police it? That's not how it works. What you should do is, Rogan talks about this. You should have open dialogues. This is what free speech is really about. And in order to have healthy free speech, you need to have diversity of thought, um, which is a huge problem that we have in our modern identitarian landscape. So that's one of the reasons I think people think there are no intelligent Christians. They've just not seen them. And then I think why that is a lot of my intellectual problem and thing that I'm trying to diagnose is like what is that spiritual symptom of of reducing Christianity, reducing this mystical universal Christianity to an ideology, to a list of abstracted assertions that like if you affirm in your conscious articulable egoic knowing, then you're like a Christian, and if you don't, then you're not a Christian. Like that's insane. Almost any way you break it down. Biblically, it's dumb. uh, Psychologically, it's dumb. Existentially, it's dumb. Foolish. I mean, whatever. Like, it's not. It is unwise and it's unhealthy. And I think you see its fruit all over the place. So, um, and I would argue again. I think Christians have done this to themselves. Like, I don't think this is something that came out of Christianity. This isn't something that like came from the secular world. Like the secular world came out of Christianity. Um, the Christian West, I would say. So, what was the other thing that I wanted to say? I think it's fascinating. So then I want to make these things more practical too. And part of this is because I've become increasingly practical the older I've gotten and the more uh one of the quick aside, one of the first essays I ever wrote at my this Christian school I went to was on pragmatism. And it's so funny now given Jordan Peterson and everything and wrote about just how it was unchristian and bad. Which to this point, like it was rooted in ideology. I had no idea what I was talking about. Like I knew it's bulverism. I knew the conclusion before I started researching it, and then I argued to that end. It's crazy, and people do this all the time. Like Christians do it, materialists do it, atheists do it, any ideologues do it. So what was I talking about? Oh, so I want to get practical. So how to diagnose this phenomenon? Because I think what's happening is part of what's happening to this YouTube phenomenon, Jordan Peterson, the estuary, is that people are discovering largely through YouTube, and I think it's because YouTube allows for a greater depth of personal interaction. You can see people, you can hear them. It's not just words on a page that are like Sam said this recently, I think in our OG convo. I think that's what it was. Is that usually, or no, maybe it was Jeff that said it. I think it was Jeff. That often people are interacting with an avatar. It's a projection. There's something in their own psyche, some fear, some doubt. This gets very into Peter Rollins and psychoanalysis stuff. Carolina, or if I'm pronouncing that wrong, sorry. She just left a meaty comment about Peter Rollins under my last video, and I was just like, I love Peter Rollins. So, but often when you're talking to someone, particularly in text, I would say, because often text is what I call despirited words. It's words divorced from their breath. The medium is the message. Marshall McLuhan. Often, a lot of the multiplicity that that constitutes the unity that is a person, because we're all multi-unities. We're unities of multiplicities. That's what everything is. And those are the patterns that's actually how perception and sight works, I would say. Um, Often a lot of that is limited and muted and diminished in just writing. It's just, especially poor writing, especially poetry has much more of that in it, which is why poetry is more powerful and more transcendent, and artistic writing and even fiction. Nonfiction though is like it's mainly your conscious, articulable, rationalist musings, which its utility is limited at best. So YouTube, this sorry if you guys can track me, God bless you. This is how my mind works. Um, so YouTube, there's kind of been this resurgence of uh, the bounded confessionalism that I think has hampered the West for so long is being revivified through the the loss of boundaries. And so writing, we're usually interacting with an avatar. I often talk about Socrates' lament of the written word. But now through technology and the spiral dynamic of further up and further in, we're able to see number one, people outside of our little insular tribes. So you can, through the magic of the YouTube algorithm or through your searches or whatever, you're getting exposed to other lines of thinking and other lines of thinking that aren't just limited to words on a page, but you're seeing persons. We're developing relationships. You're again back to a- admiration and respect. When you see a person, even though you maybe don't agree with every point of everything that they believe, I was talking about this with Jedediah last night in the box because he's not like a fan of Rod Dreher. So somebody brought up Rod Dreher, but that came up in Paul's live stream yesterday, and he's like, "I'm not a fan of Dreher, and this is why." And he's just like, "Whatever, you can be. That's fine. I'm not." and and we were talking about so admiration. Anyhow, I distracted myself again. I'm gonna have to cut this off. I'm not doing well. We believe things because and we like people because of admiration. YouTube is allowing us to do that to some degree, to a greater degree than we used to be able to do. And it's faster and it's easier and it's more efficient and people can multitask and do it. There's something happening with it. And so I think people are getting out of their insular locked in communities and they're seeing other people that they admire. That's what happened partially with my intellectual deconstruction. It wasn't ever existential. I never lost faith, but I saw a YouTube video of Chris Day talking with some guy that I always forget his name, and it was a debate on hell. It was a debate on annihilationism versus eternal conscious torment. And Chris Day is a Reformed Baptist exegetical apologetics type guy, and he he exegetically kind of demolished this guy using scripture to make a case for annihilation. And the other guy was just doing really poor philosophy, and I was just like, "What?" And it blew my doors off. So, it blew my doors open is maybe a better way to say it. So, what are the takeaways here? Um, I find it fascinating, and if anybody has comments, leave your comments, as Paul says, if you have some on why people are surprised when they discover that there are intellectually respectable Christians. And again, I don't think intellect's overrated. I often say that. If I could get a T-shirt that intellect is overrated, I would have it because it doesn't scale. It's fine. It's a useful tool if you use it well. The law is just if you use it lawfully, to quote one of my favorite New Testament passages, First Timothy 1. But oh, that's reminding me of something. I gotta get going. So it's good, but it's more about love. It's more about respect. It's about admiration. So I would say rather than being surprised about finding intellectual Christians that you're like, "Oh, you're smart, great." What's more fascinating is people are discovering people who profess Christianity that they admire, and there's like, "What? I haven't been exposed to people that I admire that profess Christianity." Now that is interesting as someone who professes Christianity. So, yeah, give me your thoughts.